We're joined now by Professor and author William Gumede from Wits University. He has written extensively on Nelson Mandela. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us. Now, I think it's fair to say that we have a nation on tenterhooks tonight. Can you try to articulate perhaps how we're feeling? What are you gauging this evening?
I mean, there's a sense, you know, I think there's a universal, it's not only in South Africa, and I think people must remember, this is global icon. This is one of the greatest leaders of the last 100 years. I mean, this is who has been the face of one of the, greatest global liberation movements, in the same level as what's happened in Spain in the past, or in India, but, around the Congress Party in Gandhi. So this is really a big leader, a big moment for South Africa. And I think there's also, in a sense, I think people also may feel that, it could also be the end of the era may be getting closer.
Well, let's pick up on the end of an era. There was a very poignant newspaper headline yesterday in the Sunday Times, essentially saying it was time to let go. I think quoting a long-time confidant and friend, Andrew Mlangeni. There is truth in that statement, is there not?
Absolutely. I mean, but of course, we are not rational beings. We're also emotional beings, and so it's going to be a very difficult for people to accept that it's time to let go, and that Mandela is coming close to a glorious innings, and so on. And we must now celebrate his life.
Given that he's been in hospital on numerous occasions, do you think that perhaps we're being a little inured to the shock itself? Perhaps that should something happen, when something happens, perhaps that shock factor has dissipated slightly?
No, I don't think the shock factor is still with us. In a sense, I think Mandela has become, I think for South Africans, I mean, he is one of our unifying figures. If you think about where we're coming from, a divided past, we're diverse people, he's one of those unifying symbols of the post-1994 era, and I think there will be a sense of loss and a sense of fear also at the same time.
Fear of what?
I think as we move on also to a post-Mandela era, and although Mandela hasn't been with us physically or in power since 1999, he's still been a potent and powerful symbol of the new South Africa, of the potential of this democratic experiment that we started in 1994.
Is this almost an end of innocence debate then, as far as South Africa is concerned?
Absolutely.
When that happens?
In a sense it is, and so on. And when this kind of moments, it is almost, to be expected that there will be a sense of loss.
William Gumede, you wrote this recently in the New York Times. You said, as Mr. Mandela fades away, the struggle to claim his legacy, his image, his money-making potential has begun in earnest. What were you saying?
I think it's important now, I mean, with the world watching us, and because, I mean, I think this is going to be one of, most certainly the biggest event in South Africa. I mean, after, 1994, of course, was the biggest event, but this one of the global events, in the sense that what we, it's going to be very important that as a nation, that we conduct ourselves with dignity. That's going to be very important, and also with dignity post whatever the outcome.
But there has been some undignified scrapping in that regard,
unfortunately and sadly there has been, and because Mandela is so global, a global icon, I mean, if we're going to have the sort of undignified struggles, it is going to be global, I mean, beyond South Africa, and people have to understand that.
You also go on to say this, that Mr. Mandela's age and fragile health have led to the increasingly acrimonious war over how he is going to be remembered. He cannot surely be remembered for that acrimonious war. There's got to be more than that. And that's what you're saying, that we've got to return perhaps to some modicum of dignity.
Absolutely. In a sense, I mean, we have to return for what Mandela stood for, for the sort of democracy, the kind of inclusiveness, for the politeness, for the dignity, because Mandela is a symbol. I mean, one of the great significance of Mandela, even during the anti-apartheid struggle, is the sense of, dignity, which personified Mandela and which became the face of the anti-apartheid struggle. And that we cannot lose that.
It is too early and maybe even undignified to have a definitive conversation at this point, particularly at this difficult time, about his legacy. But there are suggestions that legacy, 1994 and post, to an extent, are being eroded and eroded quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, we are really at a tipping point where potentially, you know, that potential and that beginning, it was a very good beginning, you know, that we could retreat and so on. And perhaps it's important for us in a sense that, you know, as a nation, we will have to regroup and back to the values that Mandela stood for. Back
Isn't
to
that
the values of the
regrouping already
Constitution.
starting? If you look at the screeds of information coming on social media, if you look at what is being written not only in South Africa but abroad as well, the ill health, these difficult times for South Africa, is this the start perhaps of a new rallying point?
It is potentially there because, you know, we are now, I think as a nation, it forces us to think about where we've come. You know, have we lived up to that ideal that we tried, that democratic nation that we wanted to create at the top of Africa? I mean, are we backsliding? I think this is the moment for us, and I think as a nation, you know, the focus point.
That's where we are going to leave it. William Gumede, Associate Professor and author of the book No Easy Walk to Freedom.
News that moves. eNCA.com.